very good evening to you. Nice to have your company. Welcome along to this week's Cardiff City phone-in, an all-star spangled panel today. This evening, should I say. Top right, good evening to Mr. Simon Willis. Great to have you on, Si.
Hi, mate. You okay? Thank you for having me.
All good. It's great to see you. Bottom left, we've dragged him away from his sunbed. Mr. Nigel Harris. In Barry Bay.
Evening, boys. Look, I'm literally dashing off straight after this to see a gig in Club Evo tonight. So, yeah, you done well to get me.
And a bit of stiff little fingers last week as well.
That was Friday, yeah. Ricky Warwick and the Fighting Hearts tonight. We were supported stiff little fingers on Friday night, funny enough, in Bristol.
Good stuff. Yeah. And bottom right, and a welcome return to the phone-in for one of its originators. And it says you actually joined in 1961, Si. So it's Mr. Simon Field. Good evening.
Thank you very much, Steve. Nice to be back. And obviously always nice to welcome, say hello to Nigel again.
Yeah.
For about 5 minutes until I start disagreeing with him.
Good to have you all on tonight.
Yeah,
before we start with a little bit of Wales, boys, we obviously... We're all there, or also the game on Saturday night, and a battling victory. I'll put it that way, 3-1 against Kazakhstan. But thoughts on the big game, Si, at the top? What do you reckon? It's a bit like Simon says.
We'll go for Simon. Oh, hang on. Which Simon were you asking? You know, how are you going to distinguish between us?
I'll be Si.
We'll go for Si at the top, and I'll call you Simon, right?
All
Remember that song from the 60s, Simple Simon Says? That was a good one, that night.
Oh, I loved it. It was one of my favourites, obviously, Steve, as you can remember, in school.
Put your hands in the air anyway.
Yeah.
Si, what do you reckon on the Wales victory? Hard fought, but 3 points.
Yeah, it was one of them, mate, where the opening game of the qualifiers are always like cagey and difficult because teams don't want to lose. And, you know, Kazakhstan, obviously the lower ranked team, just 11 men behind the ball, low block, and just make it as difficult as possible. And even, you know, it's one of those games as well, especially when we miss chances after scoring. They get a dubious penalty. And then it's like, that's the sort of game before where you get to the hour point, you get to the 70-minute mark, and it's still 1-1. And then you kind of concede like a deflected goal or something in the last couple of minutes. So I think they went about their business well. It was professional. It wasn't the best performance under Bellamy, but I did think at one point we might pay for the missed chances. But also Kazakhstan made zero effort to kind of press and come out. So we had to be patient. And he did say that before the game, that we'd have to be very patient and take chances when they come. And I thought they did pretty well, to be honest. There was only like little few tweaks, I think, which they need to change.
Yeah. Bit of a dubious ref, Nige. What do you reckon?
Yeah, you tend to get these in the qualifiers, don't you? But you know, Wales did have enough armory. I thought the first half wasn't impressive at all. The tempo wasn't right, and I think you noticed the first 2 or 3 minutes, the second half, they came out quick, Wales, and got that second goal. And fortunately, once they were in front, I don't think they were going to be pegged back. But there were things that I didn't think the midfield balance was right on them until Jordan James came on. Connor Roberts had a difficult night against the Macedonian number 10, and they always came. They were attacking his side all the time, weren't they? It was all coming down that way. Went on the few occasions they got forwards, but in the end they got home quite comfortably. It's all about the result, the opening game. So up and away we go, and see how we get on tomorrow night now.
Yeah, it's going to be tricky tomorrow for sure. What did you think, Sidefield? What did you think of the starting lineup? I was, I wasn't too convinced.
Well,
go on.
I think he admitted he was struggling for midfielders. Obviously, we're missing Ampadu, and we haven't got Harry Wilson either. And obviously, Ramsey's out injured. I wondered if I wondered what the situation is with Joe Allen. I just wondered if he's thinking of holding him back for the North Macedonia game. Yeah, and I was in one way I was a bit surprised that Kiefer didn't start up front, but then again I thought, well, maybe he's keeping him for the North Macedonia game as well. One of the things that I thought certainly in the first half, I thought if I was Brennan Johnson, I'd be really cheesed off now because he was making all these runs and we just we weren't trying to find him, and it looked like the priority, and it might well have been that the priority was to let's keep possession of the ball. I know this is like a big thing for Craig Bellamy. Let's hold on to the ball, because if we've got it, they can't hurt us with it. So I just thought, Brennan Johnson may not just as well have been on there because he was making, he made runs several times, and I definitely tried to find him with one. So, but if you'd offered me 3-1 before the start of the game, I'd have said yes, I'll take that. Yeah. Thank you very much. And you might say it's not the best game of football, but as I think it was Nige said, they didn't come out at all. So you've got to try and lure them out a bit. So if we're just going to play the ball around across the halfway line, then that's what we're going to do. And if we're leading, then that's what teams who are in the lead will often do, even in a domestic league. So, well, okay, you've got to get something out of this game now, so you've got to come out. And if you don't, we're just going to knock the ball across. So I thought it was a professional performance on that basis. I agree that the Connor Roberts had us with our hearts in our mouths a couple of times with underhit passes. Because the other thing it reminded me, some of the things we were talking about is that memorable game against Armenia where we took a 10-minute lead and then ended up losing 4-2 because they just broke so quickly, and we didn't have anyone in midfield, and it was just like, and then they fantastic finishers. But I saw Armenia got beaten yesterday or the day before by somebody quite lowly. So if you manage them quite well, but you have to be disciplined, and you can't go all gung ho because that's how they're gonna, get back at you. So all in all, I thought that's a decent performance. Bearing in mind as well, we got a big game tomorrow night, which is going to be tougher, and so you didn't want to sort of put everything out there on the pitch. You wanted to save a bit where you could. Yeah,
the burning question is: was it a penalty?
Who's ours or theirs? Theirs.
No, theirs.
Yeah, well, no, it's just that earlier on, was it Dan James? Was like it looked like he was hacked down in the penalty area.
Yeah,
it was just like, really.
All right,
but
I think it was, Steve, on the basis that Connor Roberts didn't complain at all, did he? He just seemed to accept it, and on that basis, I thought, because he is someone who does sort of speak up quite a lot, but he did just walk away, and so I always thought it was, but. What I was going to say, just with the Cardiff City hat on, do you think Ruben Colwell could have made a difference in that game? I think Bellamy did make some strange squad call-ups. Lesser players than I would say in Ruben. I know he could be hit or miss, but he did feel that was the sort of game that he could have opened up play a little bit more than our midfield, where Simon said it was just this to and fro, wasn't it, across the line stuff with not really too much incisiveness going on. And that's the sort of thing that Ruben offers.
Yeah, we needed a bit more guile in there, didn't we? And as you said, I think you all said, I think Jordan made a difference when he came on for sure, and definitely put us more on the front foot. Si, do you reckon it was a penalty?
No, I mean, I don't know what I'm no fan of Connor Roberts, to be honest. I think him and Cullen are the weak links in that team. I know Cullen offers a lot off the ball, but technically, it does break down a lot with them. But I don't want to single them out because people just think it's a Swansea thing, but it's not. But no. I just don't know what he's supposed to do. Do you know what I mean? His hand's right by his side. It's one of those. But VAR at international level takes it to a whole another level of annoyance for me, because Daniel James beats three men, is in the box or at least on the edge of the box, gets absolutely wiped out, and they don't even look at it. And then they spend 10 minutes looking at other decisions. Just very frustrating. Just on Jordan James, though, Steve, I thought, obviously, we had that patience thing of going side to side and trying to, entice Kazakhstan out, which they didn't want to do. But I thought what Jordan James offered in the second half was he dropped into that back three to pick up the ball, and then him and Nico Williams were able to play those balls which broke the lines, or the sort of diagonal switch balls to the wingers. And also I'd add that I had a conversation with someone during the game from within the Cardiff setup, shall we say? And like they said, they just text me and said, you know, if you put Ruben in Cullen's position in this game, he would absolutely be in his element, because, you know, the one thing which Ruben struggles with at Cardiff is he very rarely has a lot of movement off him. And the one thing that Wales offer is lots of pace around him, lots of width, and lots of running in behind. And I think he would have been in his element. Unfortunately, he got a bit of a languid style, so he is unfairly labelled as doesn't work hard, which he does. He's got one of the highest stats for winning the ball back for an attacking player. But Cullen does offer, obviously, a much higher energy press, which I accept, you know, is what Craig wants. But for me, I think the way we play football, that's why Harry Wilson has been so successful under Craig Bellamy, because of the movement off him and his technical ability. So for me, if I was Ruben, I'd have been a bit disappointed not to be in that squad, especially when he sent back, or he sent Lewis Kumas, the 17-year-old lad that he called up, who's on loan at Scotland. He sent them all back down to the 21s. So, yeah, I'd be a bit disappointed for Ruben. But I thought Wales just did the job. And it was one of them where, you know, over the years, we've seen, you know, that be a draw or even a loss. So, you know, I think Craig Bellamy's still 7 unbeaten. And I think tactically, he sets up very different. Like, he sets up at home in that sort of 4-3-3 with just one holding midfielder, with 2 almost number 10s playing in midfield, and wants to be aggressive, which I quite like. I think that's exciting for Wales fans. But, you know, away from home, we'll either have sort of 3 at the back, or we'll have a sort of 4-2-3-1 or whatever. So I do like it. I expect Kiefer Moore will come in, and I really hope Jordan James plays, because I think without Ethan Ampadu, he's our absolute best sort of deep lying midfielder.
So, sorry, can I ask you a question there? Because I didn't hear, I wasn't aware that Lewis Kumas had been dropped from the main squad down to 21. Does that mean he's not going to go to North Macedonia either? Do you know, or
I believe so. I will double check that now, but I believe that the 3 of them, it was 3 of them. It was the young 17 lad, I can't remember his name, Lewis.
Something. Oh, the Kai, is it Kai Andrews?
Kai Andrews, that's it, yeah, sorry. Lewis Kumas. And one other, they all got sent down to the 21s.
Oh, okay.
So, and they got sent down after the 21s had played as well, I think. So I would assume that they're down for the next game. So it's a weird one, because I think Lewis Kumas could be quite good for us.
Yeah, sometimes the Stoke, he's been really good. I was just going to say, with the only other thing I'd add about their penalty is, I think it's one of those. I think it's extremely harsh, but I think it's one of those that VAR didn't see enough to call it an obvious error, so wouldn't overturn the referee's decision. So I think whatever the referee had decided, they would have agreed with it. The referee was from Lithuania, by the way, so I don't know how great we should expect officials from that country to be, and I don't want to be sort of prejudicial against them. But so I just think it was extremely harsh, but I can sort of see why he gave it. It's very harsh. I don't think it was a penalty, but VAR weren't going to overturn it because it wasn't a clear and obvious error.
Yeah. Bit of City chat later for those who are watching, but interested to know, obviously, what you think about the Wales game. And just quickly as well, while we're talking about him, and Si mentioned his tactics, Bellamy, I've been very impressed with the way, not only his tactics, but also the way he conducts himself in the press conferences as well. It's for me, it's just like it's like a magnet. I've got to watch it all the way through. Really, really impressive, and he seems to be a bit of a changed man, Nigel. I'm no disrespect there, but I'm just looking at his time on the pitch, but he seems to have whatever's gone on with his burden. He's mature and definitely for the better. A massive too.
Yeah, absolutely. He's box office to watch, isn't he? My seat in the ground is not too far away from where he normally is, and you can spend as much of the game watching him as watching the match on the pitch. And new pair of trainers every game, isn't it? You got to check out what trainers he's got on as well. But again, we talked about Cardiff. It's just I think what a shame it was. He had that incident at Cardiff where he was involved with the academy. He had to step down because of the father of 1 or 2 players complained about it, bullying. He was never disciplined by the club for it. He just stood down and then got offered the role with company. But there's part of me that thinks, had things not happened back then, he could well have been Cardiff City manager today. I do like his approach to the game, his knowledge, his tactics, his approach. And I just think life could have been so much different following Cardiff if we'd had Bellamy in charge the last year or two, as opposed to what we have had.
Well, here's a burning
fabulous. He did a fabulous job.
Absolutely. Here's a burning question for you, Si. If, I know it's very hypothetical, but if Bellamy was in charge at Cardiff City, do you think we would be higher than in the table than where we are now with the current squad that we've got?
100%, mate. Obviously, so I was lucky enough a couple of weeks after he got a manager's job to spend, 3 hours with him one-to-one and did that live event with him. And not just me, but everybody in attendance that night, the overall feedback was, I would run through a brick wall for him. Like, he was so passionate about what he wanted to do with Wales, how he spoke about it, but also the tactical side of it and everything. He was really, really impressive. And there was a couple of there was a group of people there who were not fans of him. They had kind of come in with the one view of him that they didn't really like him. They thought he had a bad attitude and, he shouldn't be the manager. And that was very much their view. And by the time they left, they were the other way. And I just said to someone who was working for me on the night, I sort of said, if he can get that same feeling off the players, we could be in for a really exciting couple of years, because I don't think he'll be Wales manager for long, because I think, when you go 7 unbeaten, when you've got the job, I'm just hoping that if we do qualify, which I do think we will under him, I just hope he's still in charge for the actual tournament, because I think there's every chance that if he keeps on the way he's going, he might not be with Wales for that long, which is, both good and bad, because if he's not, it's probably because he's done a stupendous job. But equally, we'd like to see him continue that success, for time. But he's a very impressive guy. He's clearly matured and grown up over the years, and as does everybody. I don't think anyone or most people would want to be kind of judged on their how they are in their teens and 20s compared to how they are in their 30s, 40s. Everyone changes. Everyone learns from their mistakes. I think he's a really impressive individual, and I think he's got a really impressive set of coaches, and everyone seems to be on the same page. So when you compare that to Cardiff, mate, it's almost the opposite, isn't it? Because everyone feels, or at least at certain points throughout this season and last season, it always constantly feels like some of the players are not on board with the manager, or the board is not on board with the manager, or the manager's not on board with the club. There's always a bit of a disconnect. Whereas with Wales, it does feel very united. And I think if he could have brought that to Cardiff, I think that would have been massive. And he seems to be a very, very good coach as well.
Yeah, it's a bit like chalk and cheese compared to the City at the moment. So are we all in probably the agreement that the Premier Giants are already casting a bit of an eye over him already? What do you reckon, Simon?
I didn't quite catch all you just said, Steve, but what I would say about Craig is I think he comes across like a bit of a footballing geek to me. He's really passionate about the game. He studies it a lot. He's really a massive football fan, and all round. And I think, and what Si said as well, he's massively matured over the years. I'm sure we've all heard stories about when he was a player. But yeah, he holds himself really well these days, and he's just an example of, and you think somebody somehow has just gone and somebody's grown up, and so yeah, I think he's done exceptionally well. He's obviously, the results speak for themselves, but on the other hand, there's no way you'll go to Cardiff City with the current structure. He just wouldn't, I don't think.
No, it's a bit of a pity that, but there we go. And just sticking with Wales for the time being, we will come on to Bluebird's chat in just a second. I was a bit disappointed that Brendan Johnson was playing through the middle on Saturday. I think, I don't know what you all think, but I think his best position is where he plays for Tottenham, which is 9 times out of 10 out wide, because he's got that. he's got that bit of quality out there. I think we missed that. Maybe, James was great on the one side. Thomas did okay on the other side, yes, but I think we would have been a bit stronger there with Johnson playing on the flank, and either Harris or Kiefer through the middle. But here we are, 3 points anyway. Innit? I don't know, but that's just a personal thing I'm flinging in there. I don't know what you think about that, Nigel. I like Johnson out wide. I like what he does for Spurs.
Yeah, I like Brennan Johnson. I don't think Soper Thomas had a fantastic night on Friday, and yet he set up the second and third goals. Really, his corner for the second goal. And then he put in the pass for Matondo to get the third goal. So, yeah, effective. But Brennan Johnson, for me, he's a class player, but I don't think he's produced to the standard you want him to produce for Wales, because you wanted him to be... No, there's no one to replace Gareth Bale, but he seemed a couple of years ago to be the player that would take on that mantle, because he scores goals, he's got pace, he runs past players. And whatever reasons, he's not quite got there with Wales yet, but there's still plenty of time, and I think Bellamy will find a way to get better of him. Part of the problem we got so many attacking options, haven't we? That I think sometimes is how you fit in the likes of Brooks, Wilson, Kiefer, Brennan Johnson, all of that crowd into it, an effective unit. And it does sometimes mean that one or two players are shuffling about to get them all on the field. But I can take your point on Brennan. I think maybe that's what they'll do tomorrow, and I think he will make a couple of changes and tactical approach as well. So we'll see what comes tomorrow.
It's going to be a tougher task. North Macedonia, is it? So I think that it's going to be another really, really tough game tomorrow. I don't know what you all think, but will we be?
I was going to. I was going to say, Steve, I had a communication from somebody who's out there at the moment in North Macedonia, and what he said is that the mood is still very somber there in the country, even though where the game's being played is not where this nightclub tragedy was. But he said all the flags there where the game's being played, they're all still being played. They're all still being at half mast. They're all being flown at half mast, and he said he reckons the way the mood is that he thinks the atmosphere at the game may be somewhat more muted than you would otherwise expect tomorrow night. So whether that's going to play into anything or not, but he's been there for about 3 or 4 days so far, and he just says it's really all somber around here at the moment. Interesting.
Would we take a point here now, or?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, definitely. When you think they're the team that beat Italy, aren't they? In in the Euro qualification a couple of years ago. I'd take a point. I'd take a point. Yeah.
Si, are you happy with the point, or are you going for 3? Are we going to be green?
I'd probably take a point, but I think it's a testament to how Craig Bellamy's raised the standards that I'd also be a little bit disappointed if we only take a point, because I think when you look at the players we had on the bench and look at the players that are not in the squad, you'd like to think that we could go out there and get a result, especially with the way he sets up a home and he plays with pace on the break. I agree with you about Brennan Johnson, actually, and I was very surprised he didn't go with Mark Harris, because he really likes him. But I'd expect, Kiefer, I would expect a sort of solid base with Kiefer Moore at the top with a lot of pace around him. And I think North Macedonia might struggle with that. Like, the one thing Kazakhstan really struggled with us on Saturday was Daniel James and Sober Thomas was the pace. When we isolated them one-on-one, they just couldn't deal with that. So I think I wouldn't be shocked, to see 3 really pacey players behind Kiefer Moore and try and do it that way, because they all work hard, generally speaking. I don't think there's many, it's not like you're carrying like a player or two who maybe doesn't work hard off the ball. They all work for him. So I wouldn't be shocked to see Brennan Johnson kind of be in there with Daniel James and Sober Thomas, depending on what system he plays. But
Yeah. Do you think the reason he didn't start Kiefer on Saturday was, and I saw his post-match conference where he said, the crowd were a bit agitated because the play was a bit slow, and I didn't just want to lob the ball forward. I'm just wondering whether he didn't start him on Saturday because he's just a bit wary of like flinging balls into the box, especially bearing in mind the way they set up as well. I don't know what you all think about that. Nige, is that a point? I don't know.
Yeah,
or was he?
I think you're right. And don't forget, Kiefer's just come back from
Injury,
quite a lengthy injury. So maybe Craig is thinking, right, we can't throw him in both games. He can be more effective away because he's the type of player who can hold the ball up and get those speed merchants playing off him. Whereas if we had him last Friday night with Kazakhstan playing that low block, it could have been an ugly thing if they're just belting the ball up to Kiefer, and it was hard enough to penetrate them as it was. So yeah, I think there is something in that, but I think we're all feeling that he's been held back for tomorrow, and that's what we'll see.
It was a low block, or in the old money, 10 men behind the ball.
Park the bus.
That's what we used to say.
Yeah. Park the
bus, yeah, that's right.
Park the bus, yeah. Regarding City involvement with Wales, did I notice Kean Ashford scored for the under-21s? Is that right, Si?
Yeah, he done very well. I mean, it's interesting. Like, I had a bit of a bugbear over the weekend because BBC Wales were kind of championing the amount of Swansea-related players in the first team, which is fine. It is what it is, isn't it? There's a few of them with Swansea links. But I was like, will they do the same thing in a few years when it's full of Cardiff players? Because if you look at the 21s and the 19s, they're all sort of either Cardiff Academy players or former Cardiff Academy players. And the talent in those young teams is just astounding. I know Kean Ashford was on standby for this game or these games, but doesn't look like he's going to get called up because they've obviously dropped Lewis Kumas back as well. So they're obviously comfortable with the fitness and the options they've got in Broadhead and Kiefer and people and Mark Harris. But Kean, I think Kean's had a really good season, and I think he's been in really good form, and he's been very unlucky to be dropped from the Cardiff side for the last few games because he does a good job both ways.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to mention that. I think he's been very unfortunate to miss out the last few games. But just to go back quickly, it was nice to see victory away at Blackburn. It seems an eternity ago, and this is what the international break. But I think it definitely bought our manager a little bit more time. Whether the pistol was loaded and whether it was going to be fired, who knows? But it was a welcome victory. Albeit, and I'm going to just put it out there, was it a little fortuitous, or did we really?
Well, the thing is, Steve. I mean, a number of games in the Championship, they're decided by fine margins, and it's like some things are going to go your way and some things don't go your way. And okay, a couple of things went our way. I can't remember if or when I last saw a referee change his mind on a penalty without the benefit of VAR. And although it was the correct decision, how many people expected him to change his mind? I didn't know there was facility for that to happen, but it obviously did. But it's those sort of fine margins. And because I don't know, I saw the end of the Millwall Stoke game, and obviously, for us, we wanted Millwall to win, and they got a 94th minute penalty to beat Stoke. But if you look at that, you think, well, that's never a penalty. That the attacker has conned the ref there, but he's it's at the Den. They're all up for it, and this is why you can sway referees, and that's why I think, amongst everything else, that some of the things I've seen I agree with is we want to make the Cardiff City Stadium jump in for the remaining home games, because that sort of thing can get to a referee and can influence them on this, at these fine margins.
Yeah, it was most welcome, Si, to get a bit of a referee decision. And I'm just thinking back to the Coventry away game where we haven't probably go against. Well. But it was nice to get one go our way, Si, at the top there. What do you reckon?
Yeah, 100%, mate. And I think, look, we've had a lot of games this season where we haven't had the luck. And, some of it's self-inflicted with concentration and mistakes and things like that. We have also had some sort of 50-50 decisions go against us. We've also had games where we're dominating them, and then a sending off has changed it. The Coventry one being the obvious one, the Plymouth one. So it was nice. I thought we were due a little bit of luck. And, when he gave the penalty, I immediately thought, or when he gave the penalty and then turned it over, I immediately thought back to when we were in the Premier League with that Chelsea goal from Azpilicueta, where it was so far offside, it was ludicrous. Gets given, we go down by a small margin, and then the next season they bring in VAR, and I was just like, oh, is this going to be the same thing where they're going to get this ludicrous penalty? It's not going to get overturned, and then we're going to go down, and then next season there'll be VAR in the Championship, which I don't want, by the way, but just as it kind of be this most Cardiff thing ever, wouldn't it? But look, and fair play to the linesman, by the way, to have the stones and the backbone to, to really go, no, you got that wrong, because I don't think many linesmen do that. And I thought it was the right thing to do as well. It was the right decision. And I do think Cardiff deserves 3 points as well.
I don't want to be controversial on the penalty, but if the referee gave it for handball, right, because he thought O'Dowd hit it, the Blackburn player who was gay, wasn't it? It was I mean, he's a darker skin. So if the ref saw a ball on a hand, he's either seen a black hand or a white hand. How can he mistake a black hand on the ball with O'Dowd? It's just like, what's he doing?
Yeah, perhaps
it's not like it's an easy. Oh, I saw a hand on the ball, and I thought it was the striker. I thought it was a defender. It's just like, how can you do that? That's what I thought afterwards. I thought, what?
I thought he gave the penalty initially for O'Dowd pulling on him, and if you remember, I think it was about 10 or 15 minutes earlier. Probably O'Dowd got away with one that should have been a penalty. So whether the ref was thinking it evens it up for the one I didn't give earlier, but how he can change a season, because I think
the one before wasn't a penalty. He just put his arm on his shoulder. There's not enough for him to fall over. That was that would have been very harsh as well.
It can be a turning point, isn't it? Because if that penalty was given and Blackburn had scored it, we'd be in the bottom 3. And I don't think Rizzo would be in charge now. I think that would have been the trigger. It would have gone. But it's given him more breathing space, and they've got to make the most of these games now coming up, particularly the home games. There's 4 home games where you think 3 of them are definitely winnable. But you can't afford to slip up this weekend, isn't it? We moved on from Blackburn, who I thought are really poor. I think they've taken 1 point from 27. They've really dropped off when Eustace has left them. Ironically, he's now, threatening us with Derby. So it's a huge challenge coming up, but we've got to keep winning games, and for that to happen, we got to try and stop conceding goals and silly goals, which seems to be a theme every game. But we are scoring, and hopefully it's just giving everyone that little bit of confidence, a little bit of breathing space. It's fortnight off, we can go again, but we've got to hit the ground running this Saturday, I think.
Very small margins, and like you say, things could have changed in an instant there. Talking to Callum O'Dowd, he signed a 3-year contract, so that's a long contract for us. He's a little bit injury prone, or can be from time to time. Been a really good servant, I think. We could do with a bit more game time on the pitch, I think. But what you reckon, Si? But 3 years for Callum?
I am very two-sided with this, and I'll probably contradict myself several times. On one hand, I think he's earned his contract. On the other hand, I think at his age, why are we giving him a 3-year contract when we've got a great deal of young players coming through? And one of the things I've been saying is, regardless of whether we stay up or go down in the summer, we have an opportunity to completely evolve the playing squad without having to depend on selling. You can do a rebuild without having to sell 5 or 6 players because there's so many out of contract. And I just feel like at the end of his contract, I think he's going to be like mid-30s. I don't know. Of all of the players who were out of contract, he is probably one I would have given. Whether I would have given him 3 is another thing. Maybe I would have given him 2 with an option. But for me, I want to see us move away from quite a few of these players who are out of contract, because I want to see us blooding the youngsters. I want to see us keeping hold of Isaac Davis and Ruben Colwell and these types of players, whilst also bringing through Giles and Lawler and Joel Colwell. And I just worry that if we sign a lot of these players to new contracts and a couple more come in, all of a sudden the younger players' playing time is going to be blocked and they're going to go somewhere else and shine, because the talent is unreal at the moment at the club, and we have an opportunity which is quite unique to rebuild.
Really good points there, Si, and definitely with the youngsters, we got a real good base there, haven't we? The kids coming through, and it'd be a shame for for us to lose any of those if we keep signing, But anyway, also in the news, and I saw this morning, is our old friend Errol Bullitt, and our ex-manager, who says that Wilfred Kanga wasn't one of his signings. It was a transfer committee. On behalf of the committee, we passed a resolution and Wilfred Kanga signed for the City. Ding, 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 ding. So is it interesting? I don't know your thoughts on that, boys. What do you reckon? The transfer
I do
committee.
have a little bit of information on that, actually.
Oh, come on, Simon. Scandal.
So effectively, we had there was 2, maybe 3 actually, but there was definitely 2 strikers who we were speaking to. One became unavailable because his club changed their mind on loaning him out, and the other one went somewhere else. Both of whom were good options. And then it was getting towards the end of the window. We'd had a pretty good window, in my opinion, up until that point. We just needed a striker, and in true Cardiff City, tradition, they panicked and they signed him. It was a club signing, but they also did it based on the advice of their consultants. And, for those who know who the consultants are, it should be no shock the type of player that they're recommending, shall we say. But there we go.
What do you reckon, Nigel? He was a star forward for us, or Wilf, wasn't he? Fair play.
Oh, gosh, yeah. But the club should never have got themselves into that position, should they? That, that was very much like, going shop, getting your Christmas presents at 3:45 on Christmas Eve before the shop shuts, and you get what's left. They were unfortunate. Isaac and Keon, both got injured, and that left them striker light. But it should never have got that into the detail that they did a panic signing like that. He's actually scored a couple of goals since, hasn't he? But I don't think recently. He's winning too many more fans where he is now, by the sound of things recently. But it's just unfortunate, because if we had someone like Salek, or even just a striker that could have got us 5 or 6 goals in the first half of the season, we wouldn't be near the position we are today. Another 5 or 6 points on the board, and we'd be breathing comfortably instead of we're looking over our shoulders.
Yeah, again.
But, so it's quite fatal in many ways.
Yeah, you're dead right. Thanks for the comments that are coming in, by the way. I see a comment, Lee. I'll come to that in just a second. Also in the news, Mr. Bullitt, and I'll quote this because I saw a quote today on Omar, and he quotes, it says, "You will understand why I don't like him. We parted company, and I will explain soon. There could be scandal in the air, Mr. Field." Obviously not.
I didn't quite catch that. Who was quoted as saying it? Is that Errol Bullitt again said it?
Errol Bullitt on Omar there.
Yeah.
Any thoughts?
Yeah, well, he's obviously he was obviously unhappy about it. I mean, I heard that I think I was told that Omar had played it cleverly or something, as though when the heat was coming on Errol, and I don't know any more than that. I was just told he played a clever game and put himself in the position to take over. But having said that, I've heard there are other people in there who are doing the same thing. For if the same thing happens to Omar, and you were talking about if we'd lost the Blackburn game, he may not have stayed. I don't know how the board would have got away with, sacking 2 managers in one season, and it's just like, don't they realize that's going to all come back on them and say, well, you're obviously getting it wrong. Look at yourselves. Why is this going to be our 3rd manager in a season? But yes, so I heard that there are, people behind the scenes who are maneuvering in case that happens. So I think it's something that happens. So I'm not really surprised, and obviously Errol's a bit unhappy about about the way it ended. So I sort of get that, but he's still on the payroll, so he's still taking his wage until the end of June, I think, Nigel. So he's not doing too bad, and I don't feel sorry for any managers out of work, because they generally
they generally do okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's not like us when we lose our jobs, is it? But no, it's. Simon will probably know better than all of us, but yeah, there's always been stories that there was friction from pretty much the outset with Omer and Errol Bullitt, and there's always been stories that Omer had the ear of one or two officials there that may well have contributed to Errol moving on and Risa coming in. But you know, we are where we are. The problem is, I personally, as much as I love Omer. I just think we should have gone a different direction, but you know, we don't learn from our mistakes, do we? We sack the manager and we just get the next guy who's sitting behind him to take over the role, and that's happened 2 or 3 times at Cardiff, and it just doesn't work. So why repeat the same model? But you know, we are where we are as a consequence.
Hey ho, and we welcome the Owls to Cardiff City Stadium on Saturday. I'm just looking at the table. They're 12th. They lost last time out to Sheffield United. I watched that game. It's a good, decent game. They're on 51 points to get in there, so they're 6 points off the playoffs. Whether they think they've still got aspirations of getting in the playoffs, I'm not too sure, because 6 points is 2 wins, isn't it? So I don't know what you all think about that. But when I think about Sheffield Wednesday, straight away I think of Callum Patterson, and for me that was one guy which I still wouldn't mind having in our squad. I don't know what you all think about that, but he was I don't know. Wherever you played him, he's 110%, and he's still knocking in the goals for Sheffield Wednesday. I know he doesn't seem to feature that much, but he's always. It's just that something about him. I thought he was a player that we should have held on to a little bit longer, but hey ho, he's gone.
It's always a surprise when he does it, isn't it? I mean, because I've seen him, and it's the same thing. You think, well, is he still going? Is he still knocking in goals? But he still gets in the position. He's still got the enthusiasm, as you said, Steve. He gives 110%, whichever position he plays in. He's obviously not the most technically gifted of players, and that may be why we got rid of him. But yeah, you can't fault his commitment. So I would say he's always a useful asset to have for someone to bring on. But I don't think I think if you think about what Si was saying earlier about O'Dowda, I think again, you wouldn't want someone like him still around, keeping youngsters out of the team.
Good point. Do we? It's the first of our 4 cup finals, like I think we all mentioned earlier, and Nigel mentioned. And do we think Sheffield Wednesday? I think post quite a threat side coming down here on Saturday. They probably still think that they, if the wind's in the right direction, they could still sneak into those playoffs. And quite a dangerous team, especially going forward. They got some good attacking options, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's one of them where the championship is just so strange. Like you can look terrible one week and then go and beat top of the league, or you can go, you can be on a great run and then go and lose to bottom of the league. It's such a strange league, and I just think for Cardiff at this point, they've just got to find a way. It doesn't even really matter how they perform. They've just got to find a way to win. I think of all the fixtures they could have had on Saturday after the international break, Sheffield Wednesday isn't the worst fixture to have. They are dangerous and they've got players that can do damage. Everything goes through Barry Bannon. So if they can kind of stop him dictating the game, I think that's half the battle. We did look, someone just said in the comments about Gutas being dropped. I'm trying to find it now. Other Lee said about it. I was saying about that for weeks, that how could you keep Will Fish out, who was banging form, but Gutas had been, and I really like Gutas, but he had been in pretty ropey form for probably 6 weeks. But every time it was Fish back to the bench, Fish rotated, and he was the one who was coming on then and kind of almost saving the day defensively and settling them down. So I just think a lot of it will come down to how we defend, because I think Nigel said, we are scoring goals and we're creating a lot of chances, but we have to be solid at the back, especially with Alnwick out. So it's going to be down to the manager picking the right combination, whatever that combination may be.
Yeah, we'll come to that in a second. Good point, Si. Lee, next few home games are huge, boys. Nothing from our club about looking to pack the ground out and make it the 12th man. I did put a few things on social networking after the Blackburn game, and wouldn't it be nice, to entice the kids in maybe on the weekend, like kids for
Definitely,
a pound or whatever, or any little thing just to fill the ground up and get it bouncing, a bit like Fratton Park was for the Pompey game the other week. And I know that's a different environment down there. It's like an old-fashioned ground, Nige, but I just think and I don't know, is there a rule with the championship, with the FL, that you're only allowed to have a certain number of games, like kids for a quid or whatever?
I don't know if it's how official it is, but I think it's always been sort of mooted that you're allowed 3 promotion offers a season, something like that. But so far this season, the only one that Cardiff had was Watford, where they did kids for a quid, and the game got cancelled because the FA Cup run, and then it was on a Tuesday night, so it died on its what. But I think back a couple of years ago where when they played Leeds, they did you could take a friend for a £5. When they played Derby, you could take a friend for a £5, and they were getting 30,000 crowds those games. All right, different sort of occasion. We were doing well in the league ourselves, but there should be some clamour coming from the club now. Big game Saturday. Sheffield Wednesday, I believe, has sold out their allocation. They've got over 3,000 fans coming down. And unless City promote the game, most of the noise is going to come from their fans, whether we like it or not. They're down for a day out. They're going to be seen and heard, aren't they? And we're not doing anything to drum up extra crowd or support ourselves. And it's disappointing, but I think it's indicative of many of the problems we see with the club. It's we see problems on the field, we see problems off the field, and it just
although Nigel, if you say Sheffield Wednesday have sold out their allocation, that might cause an issue, because I thought with any of these deals they had to be offered to the away fans as well. The home fans. So if you give kids for a quid home, you've got to do it to the away fans as well.
Yeah,
and
you're
so
right.
If they've already sold their allocation, they could say, "Well, we can't do it now, and you've got our money."
Yeah. I
just put that's my understanding.
Corky has mentioned they have a promotion planned before the end of the season for one game, but I don't think they've announced who it is or when it is. But it'll probably be the one that least matters, isn't it?
No,
I've got to do it in plenty of time so the away fans can benefit as well. I think that's what that's what I'm saying.
Very sorry.
So they have to do it. Sorry.
Yeah, go on, sorry.
I was just going to say they have to do it in plenty of time. So the away fans can benefit as well.
Yeah. But these games have been coming for weeks, haven't they? That's the point. It's not like
I know.
This has been a big important game for about 2 months. It's on the horizon. We had that thing quite recently where we played at home 3 Tuesday nights on the trot. People aren't going to just find 30 quid a time for 3 Tuesdays running to turn up midweek when you can sit at home and watch the game on the red button anyway. It's they've got to think about things differently.
I agree.
So what were you saying at the top there? Sorry, go on.
So I was going to say, I completely agree. The midweek games was when they should have done it, when we had that run of 3 midweek games, because what they should have done is done it for the first one. Hope, we got a good result actually in that first one against Hull, which might have then carried over those people into the next ones. But it's the lack of cohesion and the lack of thinking from the football club overall, isn't it? But equally, I was going to say, I would imagine that the one they'll do it for is the Stoke games at home, isn't it? So that one makes the most sense to me, because Stoke are in a bit of a free fall and they're right above us. So it kind of makes a lot of sense that would be the one they might try and jam pack. But they should be doing it. They don't have to do kids for a quid. They could also give tickets to schools like they were doing a couple of years ago. There's plenty of ways you could get rid of tickets. You could go and give tickets to radio stations to give away. You could give tickets to fan channels. There's a million and one different ways to fill your ground where you haven't got to involve the away side of it. You can give them to sponsors to do competitions. It's not rocket science, but you've just got to have the will and the organisation to do it ultimately.
So here's the fixtures for Saturday, gentlemen. Sheffield Wednesday for us. Watford versus Plymouth. Early kickoff, 12:30. Hull versus Luton. Early kickoff, 12:30. Pompey v Blackburn. Stoke v QPR. Derby v Preston. Borough v Oxford. And I think, like Si mentioned earlier, there's no easy games in the Championship. Not one easy game now. But I don't know how you all feel about the victories that or the amount of points that we're going to need to stay in the Championship this year. Start with you, Nice. What do you reckon? Am I looking at 50 points? Or
yeah, well, a few weeks ago, we would have thought that maybe even less, 45, 46 would have been enough. But the theme of the last few weeks is all the teams down the bottom are finding ways to win, aren't they? Plymouth have won a few, Hull, Derby won 3 on the trot now. So the task is tougher. And this is the point with Cardiff conceding goals, because we have to score at least twice every game to have a chance of winning. And that's you look at these other teams, they are scraping out the 1-0s. We did it recently against Hull, but that was the first clean sheet we kept since early October. I think we've kept one clean. It's either 1 or 2 clean sheets we kept in 25 games, which is just ridiculous. Whichever way you look at it. So I think we're looking around the 50 mark. But to do that, Cardiff have got to win possibly 4 of the last 9 games, and that's a quite tall task for a team that's won 7 or 8 all season. But they're capable. The squad are capable. The players are capable. When you look at who's in the Sheffield Wednesday team, I know they're 6 points off the playoffs, but you can't say man for man they've got a better squad than us. They just seem to be better organised and find a way to get these results that we conspire to mess up sometimes.
Following week, this is the 5th of April, we travel up to Loftus Road, QPR, and that's generally a ground where we tend to struggle just a little bit. Luton are playing Leeds, early kickoff. Oxford, Sheffield United, a tough game for them. Millwall, Pompey. Preston, Stoke, a tough game for Stoke. Plymouth, Norwich, that could go either way. Sheffield Wednesday, Hull. So sorry, I missed that one that you flagged up there.
It just said Martin just said we've got a poor defensive record at home, yet we sit back and encourage try and defend and whatnot. Sorry, Steve, I'm just gonna chip off now because I've got to get ready for the Welsh podcast. Obviously, once the phone in's finished, if everyone wants to stay on Cardiff City World, we'll have a Welsh podcast with me and Harry. But nice to join you all, guys. Thank you very much.
Just a quick plug site for your Glenn Loovens event. There's still a few tickets left. Yeah,
there's a couple left. 25th of April, £10 a ticket, absolute bargain. Cheap drinks as well and everything. Look, all I can say is they're great nights. The proof's in the pudding. Craig Bellamy, Joe Ledley, Darren Pearce, Michael Chopra, and someone else I'm leaving out, Andy Campbell. They were all just exceptional nights. Yeah, they were just wicked nights. And we got another couple to announce shortly as well. Really exciting. And also, I give the Cardiff City phone in a little exclusive on Wednesday for the radio show. I got Don Cowie joining me as well, which is nice. It's a nice a new interview for me as well. So looking forward to that. But no, thank you very much for joining me, guys. I will be in the background, Steve, so I'll end the show whenever you're ready, mate, okay?
Yeah, cheers, Si. Thanks for coming on.
Cheers, Si.
Thank you.
Yeah, good that Don Cowie's still about as well. Talking of tactics for the Martin was on about there. We have started a bit slow. Let's just put it that way for the home games. Let's just hope that Omar can get us on the front foot from the off on Saturday. I think it makes such a difference. First goal in these championship games, I've been saying for ages, just makes a hell of a difference to not only the way the team play, but the way the crowd react in the ground as well, just to get the crowd up and get the place bouncing a little bit. I don't know what you both think about that, but we definitely need to kickstart the game.
One of the things I was going to remark on about why we had to change for the Blackburn game, and I know I'm going back to away games, is the fact that I think 5 of our 6 away games in 2025, we conceded at least 1 goal in the first 17 minutes. And against Portsmouth and Leeds, we conceded 2. And it's basically, as you know, we were saying, you can't keep on conceding early goals and expect to, it's going to give you a mountain to climb. So that's been poor. Slow start away. We got to go for it from the off. And I think Omar, from what his reaction after the Luton game, I think he's realised that the way he started doing it, he's got to change if we're going to get results from these from these remaining games, and he refers to them all as cup finals. And I'm hoping that he does realise, as you say, Steve, we do need to go for it, from the off. Can I just make one thing about all those fixtures you were talking about?
Yeah.
As Si was saying earlier about the crazy nature of this division, is like Portsmouth beat Leeds on the Sunday and then lose to Plymouth at home on the Wednesday. And now the Portsmouth manager is like slagging his team off and saying, it's unacceptable. They're not doing the basic things. And yet against Leeds, they were, brilliant, fantastic, beating the Leeds. And it is like you tear your hair out and say, how can you do that? How can you beat the top of the table team and 3 days later you lose to the bottom of the table team at home?
What side do you think
this is? Yeah, sorry.
I was going to say to Nigel, what side do you think he's going to go with? On do you think there's a place for Ruben in the team on Saturday?
I'd like to think so, but I think the point you're making, Steve, about him being cautious, that's what worries me with him, because it feels at times as he's almost adopted the old Neil Warnock approach, isn't it? Keep it tight for an hour. I got 3 or 4 players on the bench who can change and win this game in the last half hour, and then bring the cavalry on. Yeah, I can see the point in doing that, but not in home games. At home, you've got to be you've got to play front foot football. You've got to have the crowd behind you. And I think, I can't remember the last time I've walked out and spoken to people at halftime, go, what a great first half football that was. Everyone's going, this is dull. We're all waiting for the change to happen. And I think that approach or mentality has got to change a little bit. Hopefully he is learning, because the one thing you should know by now is we're not a side who can defend and defend well, are we? It's the stats of the record speak for themselves. And we've got far better players going forward than we have defensively. So plenty of strengths.
Yeah. Surely he must realise that, though, and it was just nice to get that first goal away at Blackburn, and it was a rarity for us this year. I couldn't believe when it went in, to be honest.
Ironically, the couple of times that we have scored early recently, we've also conceded within 10 or 15 minutes, which is what happened to Blackburn as well.
And I must admit, I am hoping that after Mate scored that really good goal against Blackburn, that's going to give, because I saw him interviewed afterwards and he was really upbeat and positive. And the only slight drawback for Saturday is the fact that Mate, Salak and Al Ghazi are still observing Ramadan, so they'll be fasting during the day. So that's why I was told he came off against Blackburn, Salak, and they only gave Mate on a quarter of an hour because they're both fasting in the daytimes at the moment. And the other thing about Sheffield Wednesday, what I'd like to see is someone like Mansberg put on Bannon, because we were talking about the Sheffield Wednesday players. It's always annoyed me that we don't seem to stop Barry Bannon playing. And as somebody said, he can dictate the game. And
we're going to stop him on Saturday, though.
Why aren't we trying to stop him?
We're going to sort him out.
I hope so.
Yeah,
he's a perfect player, though. He's a fantastic player.
Yeah, he is a great player.
Yeah,
wish he was in our team. Let's have a quick score prediction from you both then for the Sheffield Wednesday game before we finish. Are we confident of 3 points and moving up the table?
I'm never confident with City, but
hopeful. I'm not confident. I'll say hopeful, and it's partly because Sheffield Wednesday. I'm told, I didn't see the game. You saw it, Steve. I was told Sheffield Wednesday were at least as good, if not better, than Sheffield United, but ended up losing. So I think they can score, but I think we can score against them. So I'll go for 2-1 to City.
2-1 City. Go on, Nigel.
I'm going to go 2-0. I'll believe it when I see it. But when we went to Sheffield, we had a draw there, and we're by far the better team. And I think we are a better team than them. The league table doesn't lie. But we're underperforming this season. They arguably are overperforming, and hopefully we'll see a leveling at the weekend.
Let's hope we can get at them Saturday, gents. Anyway, thanks for your time tonight, both, and we'll be back in business next Monday. So enjoy the weekend and enjoy the concert tonight, Nigel.
We'll do. Cheers, Simon.
Good to have you both on.